In this video, we're going to break down Eddy AI, a new AI assistant video editor. Let's get into it. Eddy AI, I've dabbled with it a bit over the past few weeks. It was something I did in a test run at HPA, which is a sort of Hollywood tech retreat conference. I was doing a live AI assisted editing demo. Eddy AI was one of the tools that I was trying to do to get to a rough cut faster. I didn't have much luck with it, but they just released a new model. And so I want to try that out too and kind of also just explore what are some of the features that it can do and how it could potentially be useful in helping edit faster. So first, kind of just overview what the product is. If we check out the website, it does work on Mac and PC, and it works with just about every major NLE, every major video editor. It is a standalone app though, and it sort of adds to that round tripness of taking your footage, running it through Eddy AI, and then sending it out to whatever your editing program is. As far as pricing and plans go, it is free to dabble with, so you can make an account, upload your footage, mess around with it. You have to pay if you want to get that stuff out and actually put it into your video editor. And they have two plans. One is $25 a month, and that gets you 4 projects. Projects are a bit limiting as far as what a project can do, and we'll dive into that in a second. And then Pro plan is $100 a month, and that is unlimited projects and access to all of the different models and versions and features that it can do. So if you're using this a lot, $100 versus a assistant editor or someone else or the time saved, you'll have to make the determination if it is worth that cost for you. And we'll dive in and kind of show you what it can do, and hopefully that can guide your decision if that is in fact worth it. But like I just said, it is free to mess around with, so you can create an account and upload your footage and then see how it works. So there is a web-based portal where you can access and upload your footage, but they do encourage you to get the standalone app. As you can see up here, to get the full experience. So let's hop over to the app. And I'm in the middle of some projects that I already uploaded and ran so that this can move a little bit quicker, but you would get a blank page and then you would create a new project. And here are different use cases of what you're trying to do, and then it helps guide the model or whatever specific model is going to call to create the output that you're looking for. So the main one is rough cuts, and that's where you upload a handful of interviews and will help you find the story, shape the story, and create a rough cut that you can send to your editing app. The other one that's pretty useful is logging. So basically we'll analyze your A-roll or B-roll footage and add metadata that you could then send to your editing app and use that later for searching, finding clips. Other one, original other. This one was around, I think it was their first model. I've never really used this. This seems like it is the original model, and I couldn't find a use case for this. So I've not used that one. On the bottom here too, there's a couple other ones. Podcast. I'll show you what podcast could do with an example episode from Denoised. Scripted stories. So this one's not out yet, but this could be potentially interesting. Basically, upload your raw footage, upload the script, and then it'll start matching the clips and the takes to the script. Similar to a feature that is built into Avid, that's been in Avid for a while, and I haven't seen any other editing program do this. So it's not out yet, so I can't really say if it works or not, but it is coming soon, and so that's kind of cool to see. And then social media clips, similar to podcast, you can upload your footage and it'll pull social media clips and transcribe them. I did mess with this. It works-ish. I found it's not really as robust as something like an Opus or other dedicated social media clip managers. It doesn't give you as much control, but it's sort of like it's a feature here. I would not get Eddy AI if you solely wanted it to do social media clips or other better, more dedicated programs for that. Eddy AI is really targeted at getting a lot of raw footage and creating a rough cut. Something that I found was the most useful, the log A-roll B-roll. All right, so let's go to logging. This is a project that I already did log, but one of the limitations with logging is you're limited to the number of clips you can do. So you pretty much have to, let's say we want to make a log A-roll B-roll, we hit next, and then it asks us to upload our A-roll, which would be anything that's sort of an interview clip, and then B-roll, which would be non-speaking stuff, shots that we got of things around the place. So the test project that I'm going to do is an AI hackathon that we filmed with Rob Legato, who did the visual effects for Titanic and Avatar. And he was judging a hackathon where people were coming in and trying to use AI to create tools to help speed up visual effects process, have more fine control over AI outputs like camera control. There are a couple of different challenges, but anyway, it was like a weekend-long hackathon based around challenges. And so we interviewed Rob, we interviewed Rachel, the organizer, and then we have a bunch of B-roll shots of people working at computers. So that's sort of the test case that I have here. So A-roll would be our interviews, but as you can see here, we're limited to only uploading 10 interview clips. And there's no multicam support here. There is multicam support in some other models, but you're just uploading whatever your main camera would be. And then B-roll is all of your other clips, but again, you're also limited to 50 clips. We shot like 100 clips. So you would have to run it as multiple projects to tag your footage. That's one of the limitations of this. The other thing too is It can only import video files. So you can see here, we shot in Blackmagic Raw. It does not support RAW files, which is sort of expected. That's a bit trickier to decode the raw media format. So I'm basically just giving it proxies that I already had Resolve make and import. But we did shoot 2 cameras with sync sound. So in this case, it doesn't really matter because I'm just looking to analyze the B-roll, but I'll show where that comes into play in the future. All right, so let me hop over to a log project that I already did. So I did upload the max 50 clips. I uploaded some A-roll clips, and then you let it sit, and then it'll come back and email you and tell you that it's ready. And so here it gave me a text output of like what it found in every clip, but this is obviously not that useful. I don't really care that it's here. What is useful is to bring it into my NLE. So we can see you could bring it into the 3 main ones, Final Cut Pro, Premiere, or Resolve. Or you could also spit it out as, I'm guessing, a CSV file or an Excel table. So you could just have it and send that wherever. The nice thing I do like about their Resolve integration is they do have a script that they built for Resolve that I already installed, and it will automatically send it to Resolve, so you don't have to deal with the download the XML and then import it into Resolve. You can download the XML, as we can see here. So you can see it made a whole new bin. It made a string out timeline of all of my B-roll clips. It has markers and labels with the same metadata that we just saw. The shot contains office. So then if you were to search for stuff like office or a computer, we can see that clips start showing up. So it looks like it subclips the clips and adds descriptive names. So this is definitely useful. And also look, shot types, we have this grouped by shot types. Let me turn this here. So close-ups, close-up shots, medium shots, wide shots, categories by people. Architecture shots. So kind of groups everything. It makes it a little bit easier to find your media. I will say it's sort of a black box. So you saw we gave Eddy AI the footage, and I don't know how it's tagging. I don't know what it's considering. I don't know what models it's trained on. I don't know what objects are in its database that it will identify. So you give it the footage, and then you get back what you get back, and that's pretty much it. So definitely useful, better than having nothing, but you can't identify people. You can't say, I want to try to find this person. You can't train it on anything. So good first step, still some ways to go. And the other thing too is I don't know what it did with the A-roll clips. I gave it, oh, you know what? I think it's one or the other. I didn't realize this. So I uploaded 10 A-roll clips, and then I clicked B-roll, and I uploaded 50 B-roll clips. And I just realized now that it's not meant to do both. It's meant to do one or the other. So let's do an A-roll, but this is obviously not that clear that it's one or the other. And I'll upload just some of the interviews that we did, and I'm going to hopefully assume that it transcribes them, but let's see what happens. Okay, and then I click B-roll and I uploaded it, but it's one or the other. That was not clear. So while this imports, let's go to Rough Cut, and so we can hop over on the side here. The other thing that's slightly annoying is I have this on my Mac computer, and I've installed Eddy AI on the PC that we also edit on, and there's no license issues or anything, but whatever projects you load, the projects are on the computer you started them from. So if I open up the PC, I'm not going to see the same projects here. These projects are only accessible on the specific computer or even in the web browser, if you saw in the web browser. So that's a little bit of a hindrance or just something to kind of keep in mind or plan about. And I realized here too, up here on the top, it'll tell you what type of project you generated. And I realize now the other one said B-roll and this one says A-roll. But let's hop over to the Rough Cut. And this is their V2 model that just came out. So this is a newer version of how to build the Rough Cut. And it's sort of the kind of main product that they've been advertising or talking about. So I imported the same exact interview clip that I just imported into this other A-roll analysis project. And then I imported another sort of interview speech that Rob gave at the end of the competition and someone announcing the winners. So I'm not just to kind of give it a conclusion. And it's sort of a chat interface to talk through the model, analyzes your footage, and then kind of gives you key points and story ideas, and then it'll help you create a rough cut with a target runtime in mind. So we could see here, at first it started importing, and then it sent me a notification saying it was good to go. And then gave me a short summary. A hackathon focused on AI tools in filmmaking. Oscar-winning VFX supervisor Rob Legato shares his insights on AI's role in the film industry. So a pretty accurate summary of what the footage is about. Summary of key topics, Rob's background, AI is a new filmmaking tool, needed for consistency in AI generated content across scenes. So this is also pretty accurate as far as all the beats and stuff that were talked about. And then now it's telling me how we're going to work together. So first I'm going to choose a target duration. Then it'll suggest a story framework based on the interviews. And then I can modify the framework. And then once it's finalized, it'll create the actual edit. So I can either tell it how long I want it to go for, or I'll just pick a duration. Let's just say 7.5 minutes. Okay, so I picked a 7.5 minute duration runtime. Now, based on the interview transcripts you provided, I would suggest the following framework. Introduction, the filmmaker's perspective, introduce Rob Legato, his background in cinematography and notable projects, present his overall view of AI as another tool. All right, conflict, creative control challenges, detail the challenges of AI and professional filmmaking, explore the 90% there problem. That's something he talks about where he's like, you almost get quite there, but you don't get there all the way. Resolution, bridging the technology gap, and then conclusion, the future of AI and cinema. Rob is in for useful AI tools. I want the conclusion to be the announcement of the AI winner. Okay, so now we did revise the conclusion, and it's the announcement of the winner and description of how the winning solution addresses the creative challenges. Yes, that works perfectly. And so these pillboxes with the suggested output is something new, I believe, so that just kind of helps speed up the process. And now let's see what it makes. So the one thing, it's just whatever interviews you give it, you are limited to giving it 5 interviews. You cannot give it multicam, but there is a feature coming soon where you can assign it multicam, which would be useful. So I could give it A camera, B camera, and audio. But the thing that I ran into before was like there's no kind of room to give it additional input, like leave a gap here for voiceover narration, or like giving a context where it's like you can use things outside of the context of the interviews. Like if we were going to add narration, if we were going to add title cards, if we were going to add some other visual element, like it's just working off the source material of the interviews, and he doesn't have any room to give it additional text prompts to give it more context to help carve the story. And then it'll confirm if you really need a super precise duration, or if you don't care. If you need to give it a super precise duration or stick to the 7:30 mark, it'll take longer. If you don't care, it'll work faster. So no, I don't really care what the duration is. Precise duration isn't necessary. Okay. And so it'll give us first version. It'll go by section and be like, here's the rough cut of the introduction. If you want to make any changes, make the changes. And then it'll move on to the next section. This is a new update with the interface. We kind of can see the outline of where we're going to go, and it's telling you finish the first thing first. So we can play a preview. All right, so introduction 1, let's play it. So we'll say this first cut was weird because it's an edit of my question, not the person speaking. It identified the filler words. It doesn't give you an option to cut out the filler words. It has pretty much seemed with Rachel's interviewed, who just consistently grab my questions and not her responses. So, all right, without like reading this too long, I would say off the bat, it is grabbing really short segments from each interview clip, like that are so short they wouldn't really make much sense, or they would just be like too fast. Like I would want to focus on having longer sound bites of just, Rob saying like my background is blah, 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 which I'm pretty sure we got at least some long version of that in the interview. It's grabbing my questions instead of Rachel's questions or Rachel's responses. And there's no option to identify the speaker. And the interviewer asking the questions off camera is going to be something that's pretty common in interview clips. So let me see if I can at least change it to, it needs more coherence. I don't quite know what it means, what that's going to do, but let's see. I will go with the suggested response option. And then these things on the side are new. Oh, it's just how I want to view it. So I want to larger video preview, smaller video preview, or no video preview. Okay, I reorganized the introduction to make it a more coherent flow. The quotes now follow a more logical sequence. Okay, let's see. I'll also say I don't know what model this is using. So I don't know if they're just transcribing the footage and then running it through ChatGPT or Claude. I will say, and I've probably talked about this a lot on the channel, in my experience, Claude is way better at stuff like this. I don't know what they're using, or if they're using their own model built off of one of these other LLMs. So let's see. So it's still using my responses. And so I will say this definitely feels a little bit better. It like kept a longer explanation of what his background is. So, and also clip 3 was a speech he gave at the end, obviously remotely. So let me see, there's 2 things here. I want to see if I can, this seems to be using my questions in the script and not Rachel's actual answer from the interview, period. Make sure you are only using Rachel's answers in the script and do not use clip 3 in the script. All right. Because there's no speaker labels, I have no idea if it's actually going to understand that. And I would like it to not use this clip in that it's calling camera 3 in the introduction. Okay, so I see it still used clip 3, but it looks like it just completely got rid of Rachel's clips. Okay, so it misunderstood what clip 3 is. Okay, you can't edit anything, but good to see that's coming soon, but I don't really know what kind of control that's going to give you over editing. Okay, let me just say, okay, sure, move on. All right, next section. Now, is it going to continue not using Rachel's clip, or is it going to add it back in? Yes, finalize the introduction. All right, so while this is going on, I will say this is similar to what the encounter or the experience that I had before in the V1 model. I don't know if it's just the use case or what I'm kind of giving it with the context of this interview or these multiple interviews, but even this one is a bit weirder because it didn't, if I remember correctly, in the previous time I tried this, it didn't accidentally identify my questions as the response from the person, and it didn't use it in the rough cuts, if I remember correctly. So that's weird that it's doing it this time. And there's also no way I can see to get around that. Because I can't identify speakers. It's just I've been a bit of a struggle to kind of try to figure out like what is the ideal use case or ideal thing that you are filming for this. I did email Eddie AI with that question. I didn't hear back from them. They responded to some other emails. I might have missed that email because they're trying to understand like what is the ideal use case to give this. The only thing I can think about that seems ideal is like corporate videos or news gathering. If you're doing like interviews for a news story and you want to get a faster cut down quickly, could be a potential use case, or just corporate videos where you have like kind of a very clear layout of like what you're trying to do, could be a good use case there. All right, let's see what it came up with the conflict. It is still using my voice from Rachel's. You know, the other thing too that could be why it's picking it up is because I can't do a multicam clip. The audio is scratch audio right now. That is from the camera that was probably closer to my face, and we're not getting Rachel's mic audio. So my audio is probably the most overpowering audio, which could potentially be solved if we were able to give this multicam with the audio and the video. So I don't know, just scanning this, it just seems all over the place. Like it wasn't anything that was really useful. And again, I can't also like give it direction to be like, hey, add a note here if like we need to add some voiceover or if we need to add a title card or something to like, if we're like lacking context to like make this more coherent. It's just a bunch of sound bites that sort of have something to do with the topic, but it doesn't feel like this would help save me time. For the sake of speed, let me just kind of run through this whole thing, unlock the cut. I have thoughts, and there are other cases of how I thought this could have potentially been used, and I'll talk about that at the end of how I think this could be more useful and fit into a professional workflow a bit better. But yeah, let's finalize this as the clock keeps ticking. All right, I'm not even going to look at it. Let's just get through this. In the meantime, let me hop over back to that A-roll project I did. Okay, A-roll analyzed. Sound bites are identified, logged, and organized. Here are the summaries. So let's send this back over to Resolve. Okay, cool. And this successfully worked. And that's nice too. That is one feature I really like where like you don't have to deal with the XML back and forth. It just automatically sends it here. And so we can see it's top level, the clip name, or oh no, this was the project name. I just didn't change the project name. Base interviews. And okay, this is kind of cool. It gives you a string out of, well, it's our clip, and then chronological interviewer. So does it know it's my questions? Now I'm kind of confused what it was identifying here. Let's see. Okay, I think this is a similar issue with the audio. Let's see with Rob. Okay, so Rob did better. I don't entirely know why, because it's the same audio issue. His audio here is from the scratch audio on the camera. It's not from the lav on his shirt. So it seems like it identified, it knew I was the interviewer here, but I don't know why it's not picking up Rachel's audio. All right, confusing, but here. Okay, so it knew I was the interviewer, but then still included the audio as if it should be something that's in the rough cut. So confusing that the two models don't seem to be doing the same task. Okay, with Rob, it's cool. It seems here in the markers that it put the transcripts in the markers. So that's cool and useful because then you could just search for specific words. So that's really useful. And a chronological cut of Rob with groups. And so kind of grouped it by topic. And then what it determined are the most interesting sound bites. Okay, so and these are marker notes about the topic. And so it kind of did a poll of select. So this is actually pretty useful too. Something that you would have an assistant editor go and grab like the most interesting sound bites, make a string out, put it on a timeline. This did it for us. And then over here, I could see topics. We have another bin with more timelines and string outs talking about specific topics. And so yeah, this actually seems pretty useful. And so far, this would be the most useful thing that I would use because I would want to analyze the interviews, bring them in, and then I have something to go back to inside Resolve where I'm already doing all my work to find more interesting sound bites or have a starting point to work off of. Let's go back to our hackathon. And it does, at least it tells me, it does reuse some sound bites as we don't have many unique clips specifically announcing the winners. I did give it a specific clip of Todd saying, let's announce the winners. So let's just show me the current version. Maybe that's why it took a while too. Okay, full video link. What does that do? Oh, I guess this is the full video. Oh, come together. All right, well, let's export. Let's send it to Resolve. Okay, just stuck it in whatever bin I had open. All right, so it looks like it is a string out of everything we saw in the project, and it put the transcript in markers. So that's, again, kind of useful. So it's just... This one didn't add any additional analysis or any of these other bins. It just gave us a string out of what we just saw inside Eddie as a timeline. All right, so I have encountering this, I had some use cases that I thought would be potentially useful. I'm gonna talk about that in a second. Last one, let me talk about podcasting. That was the last kind of big feature that it could do. So I gave it, with this one, with podcasting, you can give it up to 3 cameras and audio, and you can say this is, if one of your cameras had the main audio, you can say this camera has the main audio, and so it'll work off that audio. We use a Rodecaster, and Rodecaster will split the audio into multiple files because of file size limitations. So there's no solution for that. So I just gave it the first audio, but if you were using this in your pipeline, you would have to stitch the audio together. If that was an issue that you encountered, you can't give it multiple audio clips. Okay, so it synchronized everything, and then it made a full cut, and it automatically does the angle switching based on who it thinks is the active speaker. But it did not ask me to identify speakers or re-recorded in a multi-track waveform. So it didn't ask me anything about like what track goes with what camera, with what person. It just took it. And let me send it an XCP XML. I probably should have opened I probably should have put this in another bin. It's probably just going to send it in the same exact random bin that I had open. And it did. Okay. So it did make a multicam clip. It added captions as text. Cool. Useful for social media stuff. But looking at how it picked the angles, you can see Addie's talking here. It just stuck on my angle. There were no settings so we use auto cut to edit the podcast or to help speed up edit the podcast. AutoCut has some phenomenal features, like first off, when you import everything, you build out your timeline, and then when you take it to AutoCut, it asks you to confirm like, okay, what video track goes with what audio track? What are these speaker names? What's the wide angle shot? And then how aggressive should we be with cutting? Should we have like very rapid cuts? How aggressive should we be with reaction shots? So it has a bunch of settings that does a really good job of getting it to a very good first edit that makes it feel very natural and has reaction shots cutaways. It's not holding on anyone's angle for too long. This didn't give me any of those options. It just asked you to upload the footage, and that's about it. And as you can see here, it held on one of these shots way, way longer than we ever would do that. This is a 45-second shot. We would not do that. And then it got this one completely wrong and is showing me when it should be showing Addie. Let me see if I could do anything here with this. So then it gives me a breakdown of the topics. And then, the things that you can do with it are pulling social media clips out of this, which could be useful as a down the line thing. But for us to edit the podcast how we do, there's also no option or anything to like cut out gaps, cut out pauses, cut out filler words, trim it down. Or anything like that. So limited for podcast editing, probably more useful for social media clip pulling, but this is an area that feels a bit lacking in the options and making it fully feasible to be a full-fledged tool, especially compared to all of the other podcast assisted editing tools out there. Okay, so I've kind of gone through the main tools, if we kind of come back here again and recap, the most useful thing that I found is log A roll, log B roll. Extremely useful if you're doing a lot of footage. This could be very useful to just run your clips through Eddy AI, send it to your editing program, and then you just have that for searching and reference later. The project thing is a limitation because you can only upload either 50 B-roll clips or 10 A-roll clips. And then you'd have to make a new project and do that again if you have like hundreds of clips. So that's where the pricing and the project, how many projects you can do a month, comes into play. Podcasting, not the most useful. Social media clips is basically the same options as if you were uploading it to a podcast. And I did not note, but just to note here, I upload everything from my computer, but you could also add stuff from Google Drive, Dropbox, or Frame.io. I forgot to mention that before. Social media clips, it was pretty useful to what you could do with the podcasting. You give it the angles, it does the transcripts, and then it can help you identify key moments, but it doesn't do you're not going to get the level of control or the level of like doing different layouts, realigning the shots based on the person speaking. You're not going to get the level of control that you would get in something like Opus, where like that entire platform is just dedicated to creating social media clips. And then the sort of main one is rough cuts, which, as we saw, I have not found a good use case for the stuff that we do that it would help speed up the process to help save time in editing. I think maybe if you do a lot of corporate videos and if you make sure that your interviews all like have narrative, foundational like information, and then they have clear audio before they release the multicam option, which would solve that issue, this could help speed up the rough cut. What I thought this would be useful for, and I did try to do this, was Eddy AI seems to be kind of targeting the like first stage of editing, where you're like, you got your raw footage and it's going to help you get to the rough cut stage. I found with editing, especially long form documentary editing, there's no good substitute. I mean, there really is no substitute from just like at least watching all of your footage once and running through all your footage and knowing what you have. And then sometimes doing the rough cut yourself. Where these tools will really come in handy and shine is when you have your rough cut, or at least you have a string out or something, and then you're in the next rounds of editing and you're like, I need to find this clip, or I need to find, do we have a moment like of this character talking about this topic? And I feel like AI would be useful if I could give it the footage and I could be like, okay, I need a string out from these interviews of all of them talking about the challenges of AI and filmmaking and what the current challenges are. And then it goes through and it gives me a string out of Rob talking about it and of Rachel talking about it and of whatever is someone else giving a presentation that I gave the footage talking about it. And it's just a timeline of just those clips of people talking about it. And it's a string out of a timeline. And that's something that like an assistant editor does a lot. And they give it to the main editor and the editor can just like go through the timelines and be like, okay, what options do I have? Does this fit the story? Does this fit the edit that I'm doing? That would be useful. I tried to do that in Rough Cut, but Rough Cut is like very rigid of like, it's trying to create a story with like a inciting incident and like dramatic effect and the resolution. And so I couldn't have it just give me a string out of Rob talking about stuff. And then checking back in here with the A-roll, I can't ask it any follow-up questions or anything or be like, hey, give me a project with, or give me a bin that has, Rob talking about this stuff. I could hope that maybe in the group, it does give me a group of Rob talking about what I want. But like all things AI, that's sort of a slot machine. And I just have to hope that it does give me the group. I don't have any control over it. So that is this sort of longish deep dive into Eddy AI. It's got a lot of foundational things there, and it's got a lot of like bits there and promise. I just don't see it fully connecting yet. I think it can get there, but I'm curious what you think. As I mentioned before, it is free to try, so you can import your stuff, you can try it out, you can see what rough cut it generates, and then you just have to pay if you want to spit it out and actually send it to your editing program to turn it into a video. So if you have used this successfully or it has helped speed up your projects, I would love to know. AI-assisted editing, this is sort of the no-brainer kind of use case where like using AI to assist in speeding up tasks that we do so you can get to the creative work faster. That's one of the better promises of AI. So excited to see where this goes. I just think it's a little bit rough right now. Thanks a lot for watching. I'll catch you in the next episode.